Hello and welcome back to part 3 of our Milky Way series. In part 1 and 2 I showed you how I take the images of the night sky. We've already processed a time-lapse of the Milky Way moving across the horizon, and last time I showed you some advanced processing techniques like stacking the images for noise reduction using a program called Sequitur, and some advanced processing techniques using Lightroom and Photoshop. But no worries, we're not doing that again, it would be boring for you. Instead, I'm telling you the main reason why I went back to this location. Best to show you an image I took a couple of years ago of this place in daylight. So what you see is this wonderful horseshoe bend of the River Wye. And my vision was I wanted to have the arch of the Milky Way spanning completely over it. So it was time for a panorama, and so I did. The panorama I shot was a 2-row panorama, and each row had 6 segments. For each segment, for the sky part, I took 5 images of each segment, and for the foreground I took 3 images of each segment. As demonstrated in the last video, I stacked them all together in Sequitur, and then apparently we have to stitch them together to a panorama, and that really gave me a bit of a hard time. Do you want to have a laugh? Okay, look at this. My first attempt, I put all the 12 images together in Lightroom and tried to stitch it. Lightroom came up with this. Not quite what I was expecting. So for example, what you see on the far right of that image actually belongs to the far left. So I tried renaming and rearranging. Lightroom and Photoshop, they both couldn't stitch it properly. So okay, next thought, let's stitch them panoramas separately, the sky separately and the foreground. And I started with the foreground, and that actually wasn't too bad. Actually, yeah, it's pretty useful, but to put them together we also need to have a stitch of the sky. And what Lightroom came up with is this. Well, I'm telling you, this is not quite what I was expecting. Actually, it's pretty useless. So again, tried several attempts renaming images and stuff like that, but it didn't work. So I scrapped them both, Lightroom and Photoshop, for the stitching, and used a Microsoft product, the Microsoft ICE, which is the Image Composite Editor. It's a free tool, but unfortunately you need a PC for that. If you have a Mac only, I don't think there is a Mac version available. But finally, that ICE came up with something useful. It's still not 100% perfect. So, for example, if I scroll in into this area here, you see this is totally blurred, and here the far right hand side, that it couldn't do that. So what I did, because I have the single panorama images here, and I just added them and manually warped everything to match it over and manually blended it in. And I also did the same for that tree on the right hand side, and I think this is the result where we can start working with. What I'm going to do now is exactly what I did with the other images. I'm going to flatten that, start doing my preparations in Lightroom, then switch over to Photoshop and try to work out the scene the way I want it. There are a few more issues. So here in the center you can see that I just pushed the shadows too far, whatever I did here, so there's some horrible bending. Need to remove all that, crop it properly. And one word here, sometimes I do not only start in Lightroom, then switch over to Photoshop to finish everything. Sometimes I go back from Photoshop to Lightroom. The reason for that is some functionalities for me are way easier to realize in Lightroom, like the clarity and the texture sliders. I can do that in Photoshop too, yes, but why would I when it's way easier and faster to do it in Lightroom? So I do not hesitate to switch forth and back between the different tools, and I just use whatever is convenient for me at the moment and for the right function and modification I want to do to the image. So I'm not going through in detail because we did that already and I don't want to bore you to death. Maybe I'm just going to what we call a little speed edit, and when we're done I'm going to present you the final panoramic image. Shall we go? Let's do that. Okay, you've seen it. Panorama, 6 segments, 5 shots each for the sky, another 6 segments and 3 images each for the foreground, makes 45 images, all stacked for noise reduction, blended to or stitched together to a panorama, and finally I got my Milky Way over the Y Valley. I'm pretty sure I will revisit that place again because over the Milky Way season, early in the year, it's further to the southeast, and then we see the Milky Way further to the southwest. So next year, at the beginning of the Milky Way season, I'm pretty sure I will do exactly the right thing again. So, as you see, I didn't work too much on the light pollution because actually I think it kinda really adds to the scene, gives a nice contrast or division between the foreground and the sky. And again, I wanted to show you, you have a light polluted area, the Milky Way is not quite at the right position where you want it, and you're not even having a super fast lens. You remember all these images were taken with my f4 wide angle lens? But now you have no excuse. Get ready, grab your gear, go out and take your own images of the Milky Way. And for me, yeah, seeing that final result is just rewarding, and I can't wait to go out again and to take more of that stuff. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you were entertained and enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I start working on part 4 of our Milky Way series, and that final part, you remember the time-lapse with all the meteors and satellites in it? I'm going to show you how to blend them together into one single image, and I look forward to see you there.